Hi, I'm Allison Wegner. I am going to do a tutorial today on how to make a bowl cozy, which is, they do make a nice gift and they're very easy and fast to do. I will go over the supplies needed first, and my thing is I like to try and pick things that are inexpensive. You can do this pretty inexpensively, and the first thing you need to do, there are some rules for this though, and I do have instructions that I've written out, but you need 2 pieces of 100% cotton fabric. The important thing about this project is everything needs to be 100% cotton. The thread, the material, and the batting. Because if you do put it in the microwave, these are microwave safe for up to 7 minutes. And you can put them in the microwave. I tend not to. I tend to put whatever bowl or whatever in the microwave, and then I put it in the pot holder when, here, let me show you this, when I'm done. But you can put them in the microwave, and that's just an average size bowl, and you lift it up by the little ears. But you have to have it 100% cotton, because if you have any polyester in it, it will melt. And there's some videos on YouTube that show them catching fire. So you don't want to do that. So the main thing is to have 100% cotton. Okay, so we're gonna go over some supplies. And if we look over here, the easiest way and to get a variety of fabric too is what's called a fat quarter, and it's basically 18 inches by 21 inches. And it is a half a yard cut in half from the width. Okay, then if you don't want to do that, there's lots of places. There are places that have them. I'll talk about them in just a second. You can also buy a third of a yard. That's 13 inches by about 42 inches. You need 10 inches to make the bowl, so it has to be at least 10 inches wide. So those are 2 options. You need 2 different pieces of fabric because you want to be able to contrast them. As you saw this one, the lemons, it's lemons on one side and yellow on the other. So that's my contrast. Places you can get the fabric, Joann's is a good place. They have a ton of these fat quarters. In fact, that's where I got these. Walmart has a decent selection of them. Hobby Lobby has a few. Then to buy the batting, this is what I would recommend. It's called Wrap and Zap. And you can see 100% natural cotton batting. Okay, microwave safe. Okay, so, sorry, there's a dog under there. So microwave safe, you can make microwave bowls out of this. This is a yard by 45 inches, so 36 by 45. And so you can get 6 bowls out of this, 12 pieces, because you need a piece of the batting for each of the pieces of fabric. But this is what I would recommend because it's fairly inexpensive to do. Wrap and Zap at Walmart is under $5. It's more at Joann's, but they often have them on sale. The last thing that you need is you need 100% cotton thread. Okay, and this is thread Coats & Clark, which is an old brand. I got this at Joann's. They have a pretty good color selection. The one in the green spool is from Hobby Lobby. They have only probably a dozen colors, but a lot of times the Coats & Clark is $2.99. I think the Hobby Lobby is like $3.29, but it goes on sale every 2 weeks, so it's half off. And then Hobby Lobby also has the thread that I have on the machine, which is a Pima cotton. And it is more expensive because this is a much larger spool, but it is 100% cotton. So there are a couple of places that you can get the cotton thread. Let's see. So again, very important, all 100%. Okay. The first thing you're going to do, I'm going to use a couple of fat quarters. And we'll go over here to my iron. This is my little ironing board. And I've got 2 coordinating fat quarters. And I'm not going to iron the whole thing. I'm just going to iron enough to be able to get a 10-inch square out of it. So so. And what I always do is I spray a little water on it because these have pretty deep folds in them, pleats in them. And just give it a little press. And you'll notice the iron that I'm using, this is actually a travel iron. It's just very small, but it's really good for using for some of these small things because you can maneuver a lot easier. Get most of these out. And the nice thing about the fat quarters too is they cut them fairly straight, so you don't have to cut too much off. It's not like it's all jagged. And let me iron the other one too. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to turn that off for right now because we're not going to need it for a while. And I'm going to move my ironing board off. And I have a cutting mat here. And how I cut this is I use a rotary cutter because I quilt. And this is what a rotary cutter looks like. And this one's a 45 millimeter blade on it. And it makes, if you're doing a lot of cutting, it makes it really easy. Saves your hand from using the scissors all the time. So I'm gonna line this up, and it is a little crooked. That one's pretty good. But you can see this one's pretty uneven on the bottom here. Okay, so I'm gonna make a couple of marks, and I recommend supplies, other supplies that you need, a pencil. I use an ink pen to push out the corners without it being open. I use a felt pen to mark the batting and the marks that I need to do, the V cuts that I need to do. And I think that's it for right now. But so I'm gonna make a couple of marks, and I'm gonna use my felt pen. So I'm gonna measure down to 10 inches here. And I'm gonna put this in a little bit because I know I need to clean it up. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Okay. And then I have a small ruler that I use, which is a lucite ruler. And so you can see through it, but I just line it up. Now you can do this, you don't have to have this. You can just draw your measurements, draw a square with a pencil, okay? And then you can cut it with scissors, okay? If you look at how nice that cuts, it's a very smooth cut. Okay, I'm gonna cut the 10 inches and then I'm gonna clean up this last edge here. So I'm gonna line it up. Okay. Oh, not quite. The only thing is make sure when you're completely done with it that you close it, because the blade is very, very sharp on one of these rotary cutters, and it's kind of easy to cut yourself. So now I'm going to line it up. So now you see it's correct there, but it's not correct here. So I'm going to clean that edge up, and then check the other edge that was the machine cut or manufacturer's cut. Okay, and then one last one. and then I'll cut the other piece. But you can see how nice, how straight that is. It's just a little tiny bit at the bottom here. Not always, you think you're getting the correct amount, sometimes it's not. So there's one piece cut. So let's do the other piece. Okay. Again, I try, and this side's pretty straight, so I'm gonna go ahead and make my marks using that. Yeah, the whole thing's pretty straight, interestingly. Okay, so now we got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Sorry, I have to count it with my fingers. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Okay, so I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna cut it. And line it back up again. And then go in the other direction. Okay. Get rid of these. Okay, I'm gonna just clean up these threads a little bit too. And close my rotary cutter. Though I'll need it in just a second. So now we've got our bowl fabric done. Now I'm gonna cut the wrap and zap. Now then, the thing about this is you wanna cut it 9.5 by 9.5. And the reason why, if you look at any of the YouTube videos, there are quite a few for the bowl cozies. They just tell you to do it 10 inches. What I found when I started making these, I was trimming off after I sewed all the way around. I was having to trim off the extra batting because it was too bulky on the edges. So what I started to do was just do it a 1/2 inch less, and that seems to take care of it. I don't have to trim any off usually. But this is what the batting looks like then too. And you're gonna cut 2 pieces out because each of the sides will get a piece. Okay, so I'm just gonna leave it, I think I'm gonna leave it closed, and I'll just trim it off. Okay, so I'm gonna do the same thing, but now I'm gonna draw on it because that'll be easier to do than I can follow the line then, okay? So I'm gonna just trim this off. And this is just a felt pen, like one of those flare markers, something that I had, but it shows up. And when you wash them, it just washes out. So it's not a big deal. Okay, so that's, I'm gonna do that and put a mark here where it's 10, well not 10 inches, 9.5, what am I doing? There we go, so 9.5. There's our other mark, okay? So I'm gonna measure up 9.5 from the bottom. You can see that. There's my 9.5 right there. Draw my line and then draw across. Okay, and then draw my last line. So I'm trying to keep them straight too. All right, so now I'll use now you could use scissors on this if you want. In fact, I'll do that so you can see what you're doing. So I'm gonna cut 2 at the same time, all right? And it cuts easily. And honestly, if you got a line on here and you follow it pretty much, it doesn't matter if it's a tiny bit crooked because it's gonna be on the inside. get rid of this since it's in the way. And finish cutting. I'm gonna measure it one more time. It looks like this is a little wonky here. And make sure I've got it correct. Okay, let me do this. Yeah, it's a little off. So I'm going to use my rotary cutter for that, make it a little bit straighter. Okay, there we go. Okay, next step is you're going to put a piece of this on each of your fabric pieces on the wrong side. And so with this batting, you can see, this is called needle punch here. You can see the marks on it. I like to put that facing out because it's easier to sew on than here's the fuzzy side, okay? So the needle punched is what, it keeps it together. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna center this. Doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, and then I'm gonna put a couple of pins in the corners like this. And then I'm gonna take my felt pen and do a little drawing. The next thing you're gonna do is you're gonna draw an X from corner to corner, from corner to corner. And that's gonna be your stitching line, okay? So, and this is not long enough, so, all right. I'm gonna jerry rig a little bit, so, okay. Okay, there's one. And it's just really lightly done, but it'll give you a guideline for stitching it, okay? And then here's our other one. There we go. Now when I do this, I usually just eyeball it, but I've been sewing since I was 9 years old, so I feel pretty confident usually with my sewing skills. So there, I need to fix that corner a little bit. Again, I hate to say it doesn't have to be perfect. What this stitch does is this is holding the batting to the face. And then when you put the tucks in, that's the only thing that's holding the batting on here. But it works fine. I've seen some patterns where, or some YouTube videos where they go this way and then they go this way, and I don't think you need to do that because it almost gives too much stitching. So I'm gonna pin this again, and then we'll go to the sewing machine after we mark it. Okay. All right. And next one. Okay. All right, so now I'm gonna scoot to the left and I'm gonna sew these. And I've got thread, the same color thread that I have on the top. I have it on the bobbin too, so this way you can sew through, okay? You can sew through and it's the same color, okay? And again, 100% cotton thread. So let me just put this here. And the other important thing is, if we can come over here, the stitch length, I keep it fairly short. In fact, I'm gonna shorten it just a little bit more, about 2.5. And what that does, if you've got a shorter stitch length, then you don't need to back stitch at the beginning and at the end, and it won't pull out. That's what quilters do too, is they keep a fairly short stitch, and then you don't have to back stitch. There will be places we will have to do that. So if you sew, you know that's what you've always been taught, back stitch at the beginning and back stitch at the end. So I'm just gonna basically, I'm gonna hold the thread, and I'm gonna basically run onto the fabric and go off on the other end. And then I'm gonna just pick up the other one and do the same thing, okay? And just follow the line. And I'm just gonna run off the end, which is fine. And then I'm gonna pick up the other one. This is called chain piecing. And I'm just gonna put the other one on there and we're gonna keep going. We'll do the same thing for the other one. And I'm just gonna run off. And you can see, I don't know if you can or not, the thread it's just wound together at this point. So I'm not gonna even trim it off, but I will trim in between, and I will trim the larger thread here and toss it. Okay, so now I'm gonna do just in the opposite directions, do the same exact thing. Okay. Whoops, I just lost my thread. Hang on. It happens. I have to pull the thread back up. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna do the same thing and just do it the chain piecing like I showed you, and then I'll show you what it looks like on the front. Okay. Hold the thread, always really important, or you saw what happened. And you saw before I didn't even put my hands on it. Run off, and then feed the other piece in, okay? And I'm squishing it a little bit, so let me line that back up. Oops, I just automatically backstitched. Too many years of sewing. Okay, so now I'm gonna trim these threads, and I'll take the pins out and I'll show you what we do next. And you can see this is what it looks like then, okay? So you can do any color you want. I like matching colors if I can do it. So back to the cutting board here, and take the pins out, and we'll show you the next step. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna fold it, and we're gonna put darts on it. And you can see from the one that I made, this is basically, these are darts, okay? So we're gonna mark those, and you're gonna fold it in half, line it up, and then what I do before I put a pin in it is I reach my finger in and I smooth it, because the batting makes it kind of bulky, and then sometimes the fabric gets a pleat in it, and you don't want to sew across the pleat. So I just reach in with my finger and I kind of pull it, smooth it out, and then I put a pin in it. Like that. And I do the same thing for the other side. Line it up, hold it. You can see I'm putting a little tension on it. Okay, now we're gonna measure. All right, so the next step is I'll use my felt pen again, and I'm gonna just use my little ruler here, is you measure 1 inch across the top edge, and I'm gonna put a mark. And then I'm gonna measure 2 inches down and put another mark on the folded edge. Okay, and I've done different size darts before, like the yellow bowl is a 2.5 inch one, it makes it a little bit smaller. This will make a slightly larger bowl, which is more like this one here. See, it's a little bit flatter, but this bowl will actually go in there too, so it doesn't really matter. But these are ones that I did quite a while ago actually, and I have a few of them left, and so I've changed it a little bit. So I am gonna do just 2 inches, and then I'm going to connect the dots. Okay, oops, that didn't really connect. Okay, so same thing, I mark 1 inch from the edge, 2 inches from this edge, and then connect it. Okay, let's do the other one. Line it up. Make sure that it's smooth, put a little tension on it, and put a pin in it. Line it up. Reach your finger in, pull it smooth, put a pin. Now we're gonna do the measuring again. Okay, 1 inch, 2 inches, and connect it. And this part doesn't have to be perfect either. You're really just using it as a guidance. So, but you really should mark, you do need to mark it. Okay, so 1 inch. I'm doing okay. And 2 inches and connect it. Then we'll go with sewing machine and we'll sew these. Okay, all right. Now I do this is the way I do this, but, and I'll show you. This part you do need to backstitch and backstitch because you don't want the dart to come out, okay? So I'm gonna backstitch at the beginning, and when I taught sewing, I was a home ec teacher many moons ago, to 7th and 8th graders. How I always taught them was hold the thread, then you're gonna backstitch 1, 2, 3, and you just count. 1, 2, 3. Then go forward on the line to the end, and then 1, 2, 3. Sorry, that's a little bit fast. It's a fast machine. Then I'm just gonna leave it connected, you see that? And I'm gonna do the same thing here. Backstitch. And backstitch again, okay? Then I will cut it out and I'll cut the threads off, okay? Where is it? Oh, there it is. Now we'll do the second one, and then we're gonna repeat it, just what we did, in just a second. So backstitch, sew, backstitch, then backstitch, sew the dart, and backstitch, and cut it out. I also like to cut all my threads. I'm a neat sewer, and I like to have it all gone. So, okay, there we go. All right, so now we're gonna repeat the process in the other direction. All right. So you'll notice it's getting some shape here now. So now I'm going to just line up at the corners again, okay? And hold it flat, and then do the same thing. Reach inside, put some tension on it, and then you're gonna put a pin in it. And we're gonna do the same thing. We're going to draw the dart on it, okay? Okay, so 1 inch and 2 inches. Okay, we'll do the second one. This one's going to be cute. I like this fabric. Okay, line it up. Smooth it out. Okay, last one. Okay, 1 inch, 2 inches, and connect. Inch, 2 inches, and connect. Okay, back to sewing. I'm going to do the same thing. Do the second set of darts. Okay, back stitch. And you hear how it's sounds like it's thumping a little bit. It's the needle going through 2 layers of batting and 2 layers of fabric, so it sometimes makes a little bit of noise. Okay, there's that one. And last one. Almost ready to assemble it. You can see how fast, even with me talking, it's pretty fast. So I'm going to take the pins out. Okay, and then what you're going to do, I don't need that anymore. You are going to take scissors. You do need scissors. And you're going to cut off the majority of this. You're going to leave about 1/4 of an inch where the seam is. I don't even measure, I just eyeball it. Cut them off. Then do the other side. Okay, you can see how that looks with it cut off. This is bulky, so you don't want that there. So, I mean, that's the reason why I make the batting a little bit smaller, like I said. Okay, we got this cut. I'm throwing the scraps away. I am going to press this because it is bulky. So, excuse me, I'm going to pick up my ironing board again. I'm just basically gonna press them down. I don't like to do it on this side because the batting retains moisture. So if you're using steam, it's actually better to do it on this side. So I always do it on the fabric side. And so I basically just hold it like this, and I put the point in, and I give it a press so it squishes it down a bit. Nothing fancy. You're gonna press it again later on, but I do give it a shot of steam. Okay, so see how it makes it a little bit flatter? That's what you want. We'll do the other one. Okay, I'm gonna leave the iron on because we are gonna use it. So the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna actually make our bowl shape. So what you have to do is just flip one of these so the right sides are together, okay? And the batting, you're working with the batting right now. And what I do is I put 8 pins in it to sew it together. And I match the corners up first. And I just put, like I did before, I just put a pin across it. So I match those up, and then I put a pin at the seam. Okay, so then our last ones, just match them up here, and you're gonna put a pin on either side of the seam like this. And I sew through the pins all the time. You're not supposed to, but it's a bad habit that I've been doing for way too long. So, okay. You just need to hold it together. And there are some tutorials that will say you don't need to do that. I always feel better pinning because then you're sure that it's not shifting. This, you can see this is pretty shifty. So you want it to stay together. Okay, so now the last thing I'm gonna do, we need to leave an opening, okay? So on one of the edges, you're gonna just, with 2 marks, you're gonna draw like 3 inches, maybe a little bit less. And so I usually start at the seam here, put my first mark, and then there's 3 inches right there, you can see. Because you really want to have enough so you can make a corner. You don't want to have it all the way flat across because you're going to have to tuck those edges under, okay? So 3 inches is good here, okay? Now we're going to go to the sewing machine again and sew it together. We're getting almost done. Okay. All right, so I'm going to start at the 3-inch mark right here, and you are going to backstitch. You have to, because you're going to be reaching inside, and the seams will come out if you don't backstitch, and backstitch on both sides. Okay. So I am going to do it at 1/4 of an inch, and I marked my 1/4 inch on my machine so you can see it, and I'll use that as my guide to line up. Okay. So I'm going to backstitch. I'm going to go to the corner, and I'm going to hand walk it if I need to, and then I'm going to leave the needle in. You can see that. If you leave it in and you lift up the presser foot, you've got a pivot, and you'll get a sharp corner that way. Okay, so I'm going to line it back up. I'm going to put the presser foot back down, and I'm going to go 1/4 of an inch. You've got a little jog here, but it's easy just to go like that. So same thing, I'm coming to a corner again. I'm gonna leave it in, leave the needle in, pivot it, and keep going. actually pivot a little bit. Now we're coming to the end here, and there's our other pink mark there. So that's our ending spot. And I'm just gonna go across, and when I get there, I'm gonna back stitch, and I'll cut the thread. And cut the thread at the beginning. And now what you need to do is, you do have bulk at the corners. And so I'm going to show you how to cut, after I take the pins out, cut the corners off. And when you do this, be very careful not to cut through the stitching. I have to say I've made that mistake and have had to go back. When I've turned it inside out, all of a sudden it's starting to fall apart at the corners. So you do have to be careful. Okay, we can see that's how it looks right now. So then I'm going to just take my scissors and I'm going to carefully cut across the corners. You can see the corner here. And I'm going to just, you're removing a little bit of bulk. So I'm just taking the tip off and not cutting through the stitches. And you can see with taking off, making the square only 9.5 inches, you see you don't have that much. And it didn't catch every place, but it doesn't matter because it's all sewn down, and we're gonna do top stitching now. But you can see then I don't have to cut off. Like I said, I was finding I was having to cut off some of the batting because it was the edges were too bulky. So now I'm gonna reach inside. Where's my, there it is. Where am I seeing it? There it is. Reach inside my opening. There we go. And what I always do is I reach for the opposite corner here and try and push it out. And I do all of them. Push them in, the corners in, and then you're gonna pull it inside out. Wiggle it out. Okay, there's our basic shape. Now I'm gonna, with my ink pen, my closed ink pen, I'm gonna use this point, and I'm gonna reach inside, and I'm gonna push the corners out. Don't push too hard, because again, the same thing, you don't want to have to restitch this now that you've done this, okay? So I'm gonna very carefully, you can see I'm working the corner out the best that you can. It's better if it's a little bit sharp, okay? It's as sharp as I'm gonna be able to get it. There's corner 3. It's fighting me a little bit. This is the opening one, so this is that last corner. And why you want to have a corner there, okay? So now you've got it. There's your basic shape here. And what I'm going to do before I tuck in the edges, I'm gonna press this down. You can see how it's pretty puffy right now. And I kind of finger press it like this, squish it down, and then I press it. And you can see it goes a lot flatter. And I do each little part of it on the corner. Okay, I'm just work my way around to the opening. See how it's getting flatter? Okay. Okay, second to the last. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tuck the edges under, okay? And I'm gonna separate out where's my batting? There it is. And you're just gonna tuck it under and you're gonna press it. And then you're gonna stitch it. There we go. So you've got it straight, okay? I'm gonna give it a press and that will hold it down, and then I'll put a couple of pins in it. Let me just check the other side. You don't want it to be hanging over too much, and that looks pretty good. You can see that. It's lined up. So I'm gonna put a couple of pins to hold it together, and then we're gonna top stitch it and we will be done, okay? Okay, back here. And I usually don't start on that side. I like that to just be continuous because sometimes it will separate. So I always start like over here and I back stitch again. You want it to stay together. Hold my thread. And the little mark I have on my presser foot here, that's the mark that I use to line up how I'm gonna top stitch. You wanna top stitch as close to the edge as you can and not fall off the edge, okay? So I'm gonna put my presser foot down, I'm gonna back stitch, and then I'm just gonna smooth it as I go. We're gonna do the same thing when we get to the corners. We're gonna pivot. And you can always, if you go over too far, you can always turn it back around and go one more stitch to make it line up better. But I think that was okay. I see I need one more. There. That lines up better. And I'm keeping my hands on it. I am pushing a little bit because this is bulky right here, but it's the feed dogs on the machine. The teeth are actually pulling it through. So here I am at the opening. So now the same thing, it's real important to try and keep it as close to the edge as possible, but this should be fine. All right, so I'm getting to the end here and I'm gonna trim these threads before I run over them. My beginning thread. Okay, when we get to the end here, we're gonna back stitch again and trim the threads. Okay, and that's your finished bowl. Let me get one of my bowls and we'll put it in there and take the pins out. Let's see. And that's the smaller bowl, like a soup kind of a bowl. And then this is Fiesta ware, and they have a flat, wide bowl. But you can see it will hold both sizes. And you can actually, they can be flatter too, but you can see the bottom here with the bowl in it. Okay, and the nice thing about these is it is reversible. So whatever size you want. Okay, I think this was probably takes about, with me talking, I think it takes 45 minutes or so. If you're not talking, it usually is maybe half an hour to 45 minutes to do a bowl. What I like to do though is I will do multiples of them. You saw that I had extra material of both of these. I will go ahead and I will use it and make another bowl. And then, because I like to, when I give them away or I've sold some of them, you do them as a set. And like I have the lemon one here, and I practiced with this one, and then I thought, well, I have enough material, so I just made the other one too. So, but that's the in-depth bowl cozy tutorial. Again, I'm just gonna remind you, make sure everything is 100% cotton. Sorry, we have a dog under the table, so like normal home. 100% cotton everything. Easy to find these supplies. You can get a couple of fat quarters, different ones, and you can get at least 2 10x10s out of a fat quarter, out of each one. So you can get 2 bowls out of each fat quarter. You're gonna have a piece, about an 8-inch piece left, and that could be for something else. I'm a quilter, so I save those scraps. But then the batting, like I said, I got it at Walmart, very easily available. The thread, very easily available too. And like I said, Joann's has lots of colors. Hobby Lobby doesn't have as many colors. They have more colors in this thread, but it's a little bit more expensive. It's $12.99 for a spool of this because it's like 1,200. Yeah, 1,200 yards, so it's more. But very easy to do. I do assembly line. I will cut a bunch of the squares, then of fabric squares, I will cut a bunch of the batting squares, and then I just do it in order. And you can keep the same thread on. If you don't have to have the matching thread, if you just want to buy white and you're going to do light colored white cotton thread, that works fine. The first ones I didn't have a lot of cotton thread, and that's what I did. But then I started doing more of them, and I ended up having more of 100% cotton thread in different colors, okay? The other thing is, where is it? I do have another tutorial, another in-depth one like this, a lot of talk, but it's called Allison's in-depth mask tutorial. I think we're gonna call this one Allison's in-depth bowl cozies to make it together. But I do masks too. My sister and I made tons of masks during the beginning of the pandemic, and I'm still making some. I just cut a whole bunch more out. This is called a no fog mask. It has a pleat in it. You see, I wear glasses. I was looking for a pattern that would be good for somebody that wears glasses because I was just fogging up all the time. And the video I saw on YouTube was in Korean with centimeters as the measurements. And so I translated it myself by rewatching it and writing everything down. And so I do have a mask tutorial too. And these are really easy. And these are good for the fat quarters too, because there's a lot of them available. You can see these I'll use for one. This was the same as the one that I made. It was all the same grouping kind of, but you can see how cute they are. And please make them for your friends, for your family. They make good Christmas gifts. People seem to find them handy. I have a friend that I gave some to, and she says, I use them all the time. I was telling her I was gonna do this video and I'm gonna be teaching a class on it online, and she's like, I just used my bowl yesterday. So they're a nice gift, and they're cute, as you can see, easy to do. Okay, enjoy, have fun, thank you.